I'm so honored to be receiving the Honorable Robert Louis B. Cohen Award for my professional excellence and unwavering dedication to the pursuit of justice. Thank you, Fred Szynski, and the Board of Directors for awarding me this great honor. Thank you, Fred, for your leadership during the pandemic, the webinar, and much more. Thank you to my protege, Jim Kasuris, for putting this event together, which could never have been done without Emma Cole. Thank you to my wife, Nancy, for editing this presentation, plus videotaping this presentation. And our marriage is still intact. Thank you to Nancy's sidekick, Nicola, who was instrumental in the staging of this video. And to my children, Gary and Janie, for their IT work, which you will experience this evening. Most of all, thank you everyone for celebrating with me tonight. It means a lot to have you all here. I also want to thank my distant family and friends that would have been here. Instead, COVID showed up. When Fred called me in 2020 to tell me I was receiving this award, I actually cried. It is now worth the 2-year wait, as I'm being honored on the same night as the first Judge Jack B. Weinstein Award is presented to Judge Block. I attended Judge Weinstein's memorial service, and a Second Circuit judge extolled his as a genius. He had been a professor at Columbia Law School. I turned to the lawyer next to me and said, quote, "She just reversed him in a case of mine where Judge Weinstein suppressed the wiretap because the special agent had lied. It's not surprising. She has a very low Levitt rating." I am told at the time Judge Weinstein wrote a 100-plus page opinion granting bail to a defendant. After reading his decision in court, he and his 2 law clerks entered the elevator going to chambers. Judge Weinstein turned to his law clerks and said, "You know, the Second Circuit is going to reverse this." One of the law clerks just started her clerkship. When she heard this, she almost passed out. He wasn't concerned with being reversed. He knew what was right, and he did what was right. To my co-honoree tonight, recipient of the inaugural Jack B. Weinstein, the Honorable Fred Block. I've heard great things about you, Judge Block. My law partner even tried a case before you. You are the perfect judge to receive the first Jack B. Weinstein Award ever presented. Not just because you are Brooklyn born like me, not just because you are Big Ten educated like me, but because, like Judge Weinstein, you do not have a fragile ego. And in the unlikely event you ever get reversed by the Second Circuit, I know your reaction would be Weinstein-esque. And I know in the room tonight, there are great criminal defense lawyers. That I am the one being honored is frankly overwhelming. I knew I was a major league criminal defense lawyer, but I never envisioned I'd be inducted into the Criminal Law Hall of Fame. One of the greatest lawyers I ever tried cases with was Al Brackley, who unfortunately passed away early in the pandemic. When I called his son to say I would not be attending the wake or the funeral, his son Patrick said to me, quote, "My dad loved you." Once you try a case with co-counsel, it's love for life. We are warriors. The first time I ever heard us called warriors was a long time ago at a lecture. The person referring to us as warriors was none other than Judge Jack B. Weinstein. He clearly had great respect for criminal defense lawyers. We try cases where we are David against Goliath, and we are David without a slingshot. The government also thinks they are the Harlem Globetrotters and win every case, and we are the generals and supposed to fight the good fight and lose graciously every time. But we are warriors, and that is not our expectation. And I am not talking about a conviction or a lesser charge. I'm talking about walking out the front door of a courthouse with your client after a not guilty verdict, especially if your client had been detained. I have been lucky all my life. My mother taught me never to lie. If you lied, there were consequences. And the consequences in my home was my father's wrath followed by a serious beating. Dad, tonight I say thank you, because after you, every judge was just a piece of cake. Luckily for me, I got to love you before you passed, and I got to realize you love me too. So thanks again. With this upbringing, it's no surprise I have spent most of my life as a criminal defense lawyer. What I learned was that the best lie is silence. Because I was almost a non-reader till the 5th grade, I became a great listener, which has served me well. Soon after I passed the bar, I was introduced by my friend's father as an embryo attorney to a judge, a Brooklyn judge, Nat Sobel. He looked at me and said, "Son, the law is a very jealous mistress." My children who are here tonight learned this lesson early in life as I was unavailable, being on trial, waiting for an arraignment or out of state on a case. In 1965, I started my career with the Legal Aid Society of New York. At the time, the only organization that represented indigent defendants in the city of New York. We had 3 lawyers handling felony cases in the Supreme Court and 14 of us covering all criminal court parts at 100 Center Street. It was the best of times to be a criminal defense lawyer, except there were only a few female practicing criminal lawyers, which was understandable since there were only 4 female students in my graduating class from law school of 300. There were no misdemeanor jury trials at that time, but you had felony hearings. I did 6 to 8 a day, cross-examining complainants and witnesses all day, every day. It is the 60s, the Warren Supreme Court deciding cases like Miranda, Map against Ohio, etc. Everybody believes in the rights of defendants, and those who didn't ruled as if they did. When you took a plea, a prosecutor would tell you, adjourn the plea a week, you'll get a better judge. It was collegial. You develop relationships with ADAs and judges too. It was the golden days of private criminal law too. At arraignments, defendants were pre-screened, and the private lawyers would sit in the arraignment part and were assigned to defendants who could afford an attorney but didn't have one at that time. Tonight, I am adopting one of my mother's sayings. Them that brag without lying, let them brag. So here we go. I only had been practicing criminal law for 3 years, but the 18B panel waived the 7-year requirement of practice to permit me to represent indigent defendants on murder cases. To date, I have tried over 30 murder cases to verdict and have better than a 50% not guilty record. In 1976, I was presenting a defendant in a case U.S. versus Moulton, a drug case in the Southern District of New York. The trial involved 22 defendants. It started in July and lasted 4 months. All defendants were charged with conspiracy, and 18 defendants, including my client, were also charged in substantive counts. My client was number 21 on the indictment, therefore I was the 21st lawyer to cross-examine. In 1976, I was known as the King of Queens, but apparently the word hadn't traveled to Manhattan. There were defense lawyers from Manhattan and around the country. None of them spoke to me until the 3rd week of the trial. The government's first witness, Jack Brown, had been on the stand testifying for 3 weeks at that point before I got a chance to cross-examine them. After that, I was like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. When the testimony part of the trial ended, I was the 3rd attorney to sum up. 2 weeks later, the jury received the case to deliberate. When the verdict was announced, all the defendants charged in the substantive counts were convicted on all counts except my client. After hearing all those guilty verdicts, when it finally got to me at 21 and said, not guilty, I started crying. In those days, defendants were admitted to bail on drug cases. When I exited the courtroom, my client handed me his new toothbrush since he was going home and no longer needed it. When you have tried at least 200-300 felony cases to verdict, it's easy to remember the losses, very easy. But I'll try to remember a few other wins. I tried the first Shake a Baby case in the country. The defendant confessed on videotape. The verdict was not guilty. I tried a burglary murder case where the defendant not only confessed on videotape, he confessed to his friends who testified against him at trial, took the police to the jewelry store where the jewelry from the burglary was hocked. Verdict, not guilty. A state ochre case for 5.5 months. The people presented over 200 recorded conversations. I played 8, verdict, not guilty. A drug case in the Southern District where the DEA executing a search warrant on an apartment rented by my client in his name and arrested a co-defendant exiting the apartment with 10 kilos of cocaine. When entering the apartment, they found my client and another, plus 2 kilos of cocaine in a closet. Verdict, not guilty. Today, I am prouder than ever to be a criminal defense lawyer because it was easy when I started with the Warren Court and people caring about defendants' rights and liberties. Now we have a Supreme Court trying to undo all of that. We all saw what happened at the Senate hearings to confirm Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. She was attacked for being a public defender, representing detainees at Guantanamo. Then U.S. Senator Tom Cotton, quote, last Supreme Court named Jackson, referring to Robert Jackson, left the Supreme Court to be the lead prosecutor at the Nuremberg trial, and Tanya Brown Jackson would leave the Supreme Court to represent the Nazis. Today, this is supposed to be an insult, a criticism of Tanya Brown Jackson, that she is somehow un-American. How the hell is it un-American to fight for the underdog? So, these elected United States senators apparently never read the U.S. Constitution that they swore an oath to defend. Clearly, they did not know the Sixth Amendment, which states, quote, "A person facing criminal charges is entitled to the assistance of an attorney." In the United States Constitution, prosecutors are never mentioned. Every continent has prosecutors. Prosecutors are in 177 countries. Our founding fathers knew finding a prosecutor was easy. And it was difficult for a person accused of a crime to have a lawyer. Sadly, only 9 countries have public defender offices. The Supreme Court of the United States said, not only do you have a right to counsel, but if the counsel is inadequate, you get a new trial. We are needed now more than ever. We are proud. We are respectful. We give a damn. My brothers and sister criminal defense lawyers, I love you. Stay strong. And by the way, happy anniversary to my wife, Nancy.
I love you, honey, and I'm proud of you.